Very good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the diabetes mellitus, one of the top 10 disorders in this world. So we are going to talk about the definition, pathophysiology, metabolism, and classification of the diabetes mellitus. We are also make a very simple pathogenesis and how to diagnose the diabetes mellitus and end up with the top 3 questions. As per World Health Organization statistics, around 422 million adults have diabetes, and every year more than 1 million people are getting the diabetes mellitus, and mainly type 2 diabetes mellitus. The reasons we'll study one by one. As we know that World Diabetic Day is on 14th November of every year. So let us study about the word meaning of diabetes mellitus. So diabetes is the word taken from the Greek, and mellitus the word taken from the Latin. So this is the two word. Greek word it is a syphnon, and mellitus is in the Latin word. So the word meaning of diabetes is passes through, and word meaning of mellitus means sweet honey. So the very simple understanding is the patient passes the sweet urine. That is the word meaning of diabetes mellitus. In some of the old literature like Ayurveda, they will call it as the Madhumega, and some of the other old literature is giving the diabetes name of the diabetes mellitus as a pissing. So let us study about the definition of diabetes mellitus. The definition it is very simple. It is a clinical syndrome with disorders of carbohydrate metabolism leads to inappropriate hyperglycemia due to either deficiency of insulin secretion or insulin resistance to the tissue, which is clinically characterized by the polyuria, polytipsia and polyphagia. So here things to remember here: clinical syndrome, that means it is more than one system will be involved, and the main thing is disorders of the carbohydrate metabolism that leads to production of the hyperglycemia. So how it is, why it is hyperglycemia? There is a deficiency of the insulin secretion or insulin resistance. So we have to study about the relation between insulin and carbohydrate metabolism. We'll study one by one with to the tissue, which is clinically characterized by the clinical symptom like a polyuria, polytipsia and polyphagia. So we'll study one by one in detail. So let us go for the pathophysiology. So the pancreas, for our purpose, we divided into the exocrine pancreas and endocrine pancreas. So the exocrine pancreas is made up of 95 to 99 percentage, and endocrine pancreas made up of 1 to 5 percentage. And acini is the exocrine pancreas, and isolate Langerhans cells are the endocrine pancreas. So in pancreas, around 1 to 2 million isolate Langerhans cells is present. And exocrine pancreas, that means acini, secretes a digestive juice, where there is the endocrine part, that means isolate Langerhans cells secretes the hormone. There are 4 types of hormones secreted by the pancreas, so that we'll study. So there is the isolate Langerhans cells, 10 to 25% is made up of alpha, 6 to 70% of the isolate Langerhans cells made up of beta cells, and 5 to 10% of the isolate Langerhans cells made up of delta, and 2%, less than 2% is made up of PP. So this alpha cells secretes the glucagon, and beta cells secretes the insulin, delta cells secretes the somatostatin, and PP secretes the pancreatic polypeptide. So now what is important for us today's class is the beta cells secretes the insulin. We are going to study about the insulin and as well as this one. So these two things is very important for the today's class. So we'll study about the characteristic of the insulin. So pancreas physiology. The human insulin containing two polypeptide chain, namely A and B chain, containing 21 and 30 amino acid respectively, which connected by the disulfide bond. As you can see, this is the A chain and this is the B chain, and A chain is made up of 21 amino acid and B chain is made up of 30 amino acids, and both connected by the disulfide bond. And insulin gene located into the short arm of the chromosome number 11. It's very important for our NEET examination. And let us see how the insulin secretes. That means in the way of biosynthesis. As we aware that beta cells secretes the insulin. So isolate Langerhans cells of the beta cells first secretes the pre-pro insulin, in the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this pro-insulin converted into the pro-insulin in Golgi apparatus. So this pro-insulin converted into insulin and C-peptide. So that means the C-peptide secretes along with the insulin. So here things to remember is C-peptide has no biological action, but its value in the plasma helps to identify the insulin production by the pancreas. So this C-peptide will not make any biological function, but this C-peptide amount of the C-peptide help to identify the amount of the insulin in the pancreas. So that will be very important to identify the investigations to differentiate whether it is a type 1, type 2. Let us study. So metabolism. So the simple understanding, our body, what and all food we are having, that either food containing carbohydrate, protein and fat. So that when the persons are eating, it goes to the gastrointestinal system. So the gastrointestinal system absorbs all the nutrients like carbohydrate, protein and fat and reaches to the blood. So in the blood, so that takes place, the metabolism takes place. There are two metabolism in our body. One is aerobic metabolism, another one is anaerobic metabolism. Aerobic metabolism is a 95 to 99% of our body makes the aerobic metabolism, and 1 to 5% of sometime in some environment the anaerobic metabolism is taking place. Aerobic means with oxygen and anaerobic means without oxygen. So the end result of metabolism is production of the energy, that means ATP. So if the persons are eating more carbohydrate, protein and fat, so the energy production will be the same, but what happens, all the nutritions or excess of the nutrition will be storing in our body. So which is the area for the storing is the three. One is the liver, muscles and adipose tissue. So here the ultimate aim of the metabolism is production of the ATP if the excess amount of the nutrition will be stored into the liver, muscles and adipose tissue. So let us will study in the aerobic metabolism. As I told you, there is a glucose. With the help of oxygen, there is a formation of the aerobic metabolism. So end result is formation of the ATP molecule, that is energy production, 36 ATP molecule, and sometimes also go for the carbon dioxide and water. So aerobic respirations here producing 30 to 36 ATP molecules. In case of anaerobic metabolism, here it is a glucose without oxygen. There is a oxygen is no. So what happened? The cells will go for the anaerobic metabolism, will production of the 2 ATP only, and also producing some of the lactic acid production. So here we can able to understand, if able to assess the lactic acid, so helps to identify whether our body is undergoing for aerobic metabolism or anaerobic metabolism. So we'll see one will detail. So this is the metabolism. There are three nutrition, that is a glucose, amino acids and fat. So all the three nutritions are interconnected each other. So how it will be interconnected, we'll study with a simple brief understanding. So glucose converted into the glycolysis. The glycolysis means the breakdown of the glucose into production of the energy. So glycolysis converted into glycolytic pathway, it's converted into the pyruvate. The pyruvate converted into the acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA will go for the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, and the end result is formation of the ATP. So this is the glucose pathway. Here things to remember, here it is, everything is the reversible process. Everything is the reversible process, but except this area where there is pyruvate. Once the pyruvate changes to acetyl-CoA, it is irreversible. The acetyl-CoA cannot change into the pyruvate. So this is the things to remember. Why? Because it helps to identify the diabetes mellitus pathogenesis. Okay. So this is the glucose metabolism taking place normally in our body. At the same time, suppose the pyruvate is more. So what happened? This pyruvate converted into the amino acid, and also the pyruvate converted into the fat, glycerol or free fatty acid. So if the glucose metabolism is more, so the glucose, amino acids and fat, everything is interconnected. Suppose think that in one area this glucose is absent in normal. So what happened? From the amino acid, the pyruvate will forms. From the pyruvate, the production of the ATP is a normal, or there is another way. There is a from the glycerol, from the glycerol, the pyruvate forms, then ATP will be forms to our body. Or in other way also, the free fatty acids, that is the fatty acids converted to the acetyl-CoA, so that formation of the ATP. The final mechanism of, or the metabolism, the end result is ATP. So in the different mechanism, our body will produce the ATP. But one here, if the burning of the or breakdown of the fatty acid converted to the acetyl-CoA and production of the ketone body, as well as this acetyl-CoA in anaerobic metabolism will produce the lactate. So to identify this, whether the presence of ketone body more, normally ketone body will be less or in the traceable amount. So if the patients having ketone bodies and lactate, that indicates that something is abnormal in the pathway of glucose metabolism as well as into the other metabolisms. So this is the simple understanding you can able to understand. So now the questions will come, how cells are getting glucose. So glucose is a very simple, the glucose in the blood, insulin act like a key, and the cells have insulin receptor act like a lock. So think that, imagine that this is the lock. So the key is the insulin. The key will helps to open this lock, and once it is open, then from here the glucose will be enter inside the cell. So inside the cell there is a metabolism, as we studied previously. The metabolism takes place, then formation of the ATP, that is the energy production. So this is the way glucose metabolism is taking place. So now we'll study again, we are going to talk about the what is the relation between insulin and metabolism. With a simple understanding I am explaining. There are two type of organ based on the insulin secretion. So one is insulin dependent organism, another one is insulin independent organs. So insulin dependent organs are 3: muscles, liver and adipose tissue, and insulin independent organs are 4: brain, RBC, intestine and kidney. So this insulin dependent organ are the main responsible for production of the or the pathogenesis of the diabetes mellitus. So let us study in detail. Suppose in our body increased blood glucose level, that means in other word it is a hyperglycemia. So the blood glucose level is increased. So what happened? Immediately the pancreas will secrete the insulin. So what this insulin will do? Insulin will order to the muscle as well as into the liver. So the muscle will take more glucose from the blood, and the liver takes the glucose and convert it into the glycogen. So what happened? The end result is normal blood glucose level. So the blood glucose level will be maintained in the blood. So in another case, there will be decreased blood glucose level. So what happened? The pancreas will secrete the glucagon. So this glucagon what will do? This glucagon will stimulate the liver from the glucose will be secreted from the breakdown of the glycogen, and the normal blood glucose level will be maintained. So this mechanism is a very important to know, normal mechanism, in order to identify the diabetes mellitus pathogenesis. So now we'll go for the pathology. There are two pathology possible for the diabetes mellitus. One is deficiency of the insulin secretion. Another one is, this is the one, and another one is target organism or less response to the insulin. So first one, deficiency of the insulin production. That means, as we aware that the beta cells of isolated Langerhans cells secretes the insulin. So this beta cells dysfunction can leads to deficiency of the insulin, or liver, muscle and fat cells, adipose tissue are insensitive to the insulin. As we aware that it is known as that is IR. IR means insulin resistance. So in case of insulin resistant, target cells are less responsive to insulin. This is both the case. The ultimate result is decreased glucose utilization by the blood, by the cells. So cell will get the decreased glucose, or in other word, the glucose will be accumulated into the blood. So that is known as the hyperglycemia. So this is the two pathology is a very important to understand to know about the diabetes mellitus. One pathology is hyperglycemia and another pathology is the decreased utilization. The glucose will be more in the blood but less in the cells. So that leads to the pathogenesis of the diabetes mellitus. So let us will study about the classification of diabetes mellitus. There are commonly two type of diabetes mellitus. Number one is a type 1 diabetes mellitus or IDDM, that is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or autoimmune diabetes mellitus. and another one is a type 2 diabetes mellitus or non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or insulin resistant diabetes mellitus. And gestational diabetes mellitus occurring into the some of the pregnancy ladies. Others is the maturity onset of diabetes of the young, we are calling as the MODY, and latent autoimmune diabetes of the adult, we are calling as the LADA, and another one is the neonatal diabetes mellitus. Out of this four, the type 1 and type 2 is a very common in this world. So let us, the two things is very common. So let us study the difference between type 1, type 2 diabetes mellitus. So type 1 diabetes mellitus is the, type 1 is a sudden onset, where there is in the type 2 is a gradual onset. And age is usually the children will go for the type 1 diabetes mellitus and adults are prone to get the type 2 diabetes mellitus. And BMI, basal metabolic index, there will be normal in case of type 1, and where there is increased and obese patients are prone to get the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Autoantibodies is present in case of type 1, where there is absent in case of type 2. Ketoacidosis is present in case of type 1, where there is absent in case of type 2. And last one, level of insulin is very low in case of type 1 and level of insulin will be normal in case of type 2. So this will be the simple difference between type 1 type 2. Let us will study in detail. So some of the risk factors also responsible for production of the diabetes mellitus into the human. One is that we are category into the two. One is a non-modifiable, another one is a modifiable. So non-modifiable is the age. The persons having more than 40 years can prone to get the diabetes. The male patient and family history, the persons having the family history of diabetes mellitus are maybe prone to get the one of the risk factor for getting the diabetes mellitus. And some of the modifiable factors, this is a very common, hypertension, pre-diabetes. Pre-diabetes means the blood glucose level is, or fasting blood glucose level is less than 125 milligram per deciliter, and obesity, BMI is more than 30, high triglyceride, stress and inactivity. So now the type 2 diabetes mellitus is common in this world. Why? Because of this following reasons. Now we'll go for the causes. So the causes will be, we'll study one by one, type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. Type 1 diabetes mellitus, the common causes is a genetic causes. That means one twin has type 1 diabetes mellitus, 50% chance for the second one to get the diabetes mellitus. And HLA-DR3 and HLA-DR4 individual may get type 1 diabetes mellitus. One of the very important questions for the Viva as well as into the other examinations. And type 2 diabetes mellitus, if one twin has diabetes type 2 diabetes mellitus, 90% of the chance to get another twin get the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Immunological is the responsible for more than 50% of the type 1 diabetes mellitus, mainly the autoimmune disorder, SLA, so many autoimmune disorders. And environmental, some of the chemical and some of the viral infection like cytomegalovirus, mumps virus may produce a type 1 diabetes mellitus, or some of the environmental factors like obese individual and increased eating of the caloric diet, so that may leads to the prone to get the persons prone to get the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So now we'll study about the pathophysiology of the diabetes mellitus. As we know, we studied deficiency of the insulin secretion or target organism or less response to the insulin. This is the type 1 responsible and this is the type 2. So what will be the end result of this two? The glucose accumulated into the blood. So what, in another word, it is a hyperglycemia. At the same time, cell gets the decreased glucose. So this is the two pathogenesis is the responsible for the diabetes mellitus. Hyperglycemia and cell gets decreased glucose. So what happens? This leads to alteration of the carbohydrate metabolism, fat metabolism as well as into the protein metabolism. Now we'll study one by one. So in the carbohydrate metabolism, what happened? Increased glucose accumulated into the blood. So that is known as a hyperglycemia. So what happened? The renal will try to absorb the glucose. So when that is the renal threshold. So renal threshold is less. It is around 180 milligram per deciliter. But it is more glucose accumulated into the blood. What happened? There is a end result is alteration of the carbohydrate metabolism. There will be glycosuria. Glycosuria means the glucose will appear into the urine. So that leads to the patients will get the two symptoms, that is a polyuria and polydyspepsia. So this under the simple understanding about the changes of the carbohydrate metabolism. Now we'll see about the protein metabolism. So in the protein metabolism, there will be decreased protein synthesis and increased proteolysis. You may ask why it is taking place. The simple reason is that here glucose accumulated into the more, here hyperglycemia, but what happened, cell gets the decreased glucose, so the cell has to produce the metabolism, it needs the glucose. So what happened, it takes from the protein metabolism, that leads to increased proteolysis. As we know that from the protein there is a formation of the glucose, so our body will maintain the metabolism. So that is the way there is a decreased protein synthesis and increased proteolysis, that leads to production of the increased burn and increased potassium. So this also very important to know about the investigations. So this is about the protein metabolism. Then we'll go for the fat metabolism. So fat metabolism, here also decreased lipogenesis and increased lipolysis. You may ask why it is taking place. As the answer is same, the cell get decreased glucose. So in order to, the cell has to need the glucose for survival. So what happen, if the glucose is not available, if the glucose metabolism is not available, it either takes from the protein metabolism or the fat metabolism. So once the fat metabolism, so what happen, lipolysis. So the fat cells will be converted into free fatty acid or glycerol converted into the glucose. So that leads to, that is known as the decreased lipolysis. So that decreased lipolysis leads to hyperglycemia, increased ketogenesis, and decreased ketolysis, and hyperlipidemia. So this is the three possibility if the fat metabolism is altered. So what is that? So increased ketogenesis, that means the patient suffering from ketoacidosis, and hyperlipidemia leads to the patient suffer from weight loss, cardiovascular diseases, and all pathies that will study under the complication. So this pathogenesis is very important to identify for the investigations. So whether the patients are fat metabolism involved or not, with this metabolism we can able to understand about the condition of the patient's body. So that's about the pathogenesis. Now we'll study about the morphology of the diabetes mellitus. There are 5 morphological features. Number 1, insulitis, that is the lymphocyte infiltration of the pancreas, and cell mass of isolate Langerhans cell is reduced in type 2, and where there is a normal in case of type 2 diabetes mellitus. And B cell degranulation and glycogenolysis in case of type 1 diabetes mellitus. And amyloidosis deposition, as we know there is a protein metabolism will be altered, so that lead to accumulation of the amyloid around the isolate in type 2 diabetes mellitus commonly. And the last one is a fibrosis of the isolate in type 2 diabetes mellitus. So with this morphology also you can able to identify whether the patient suffering from type 1 or type 2 diabetes mellitus. Now we'll study some of the common clinical features. Some of the common clinical features, type 1 and type 2. The age is yearly age group. In type 1 there is a less than 40 years, where there is in type 2 is more than 40 years. And as we know, rapid onset of the symptom in case of type 1 and gradual onset of the symptom in case of type 2. And the thin body with the loss of weight in case of type 1, obese body with the loss of weight in case of type 2, polyuria, polytrypsia and polyphagia in type 1 also and type 2, blurred vision in case of type 1 also type 2, and acetone small breath. So this is the characteristic to identify into the patients suffering from type 1 diabetes mellitus. And general unexplained weakness or fatigue, so tiredness, so that we can see into the type 1 also, but more in case of type 2. And nausea, vomiting and abdominal pain we can see into the both type 1 type 2. And Kussmaul's breathing, that we told it is a short breathing, so that we'll study in the further. So this is the two characteristic, acetone small and Kussmaul's breathing is help to identify whether in the clinical level, help to identify whether the patients are suffering from type 1 diabetes mellitus or type 2 diabetes mellitus. So now we'll study about the how to diagnose the type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus. So I'm giving the simple flow chart. So you can go for the blood glucose level. In the 3 level there is a fasting blood glucose and postprandial blood glucose and random blood glucose. So if the, as per the WHO in ICMR, if the fasting blood glucose level more than 126 milligram per deciliter and ppbs is goes more than 200 milligram per deciliter, or rbs is goes more than 200 milligram per deciliter, can be diagnosed as the type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus. And urine analysis, you can see, you can go for the sugar analysis, that is a Benedict reagents, and protein, it is a heat and acidic acid test, and ketone body is the Rothras test. So in the type 1 type 2 patients, both will be present, but in type 2 the type 1 the ketone bodies will be present, whereas in type 2 sugar and protein will be present. And oral glucose tolerance test, that is GTT, where there is a fasting blood glucose level is more than 126 milligram per deciliter. And very important one, it is a HbA1c and microalbuminuria. So HbA1c is goes more than 6.5 percentage. That means the patients are suffering from diabetes mellitus, whether it is type 1 type 2. And if there is a microalbuminuria, so microalbuminuria means more than 30 milligram per deciliter to 300 milligram deciliter, we are calling as a microalbuminuria. More than 300 milligram per deciliter, we are calling as a macroalbuminuria. So both you can see into the patient with the diabetes mellitus. And very important thing is to differentiate a type 1 type 2, we can go for insulin level. So insulin level in the fasting, it is a less than 25 ml unit per liter, and after 2 hours it comes to the very peak, that is 16 to 166 m international unit per liter. So insulin level can able to differentiate whether the patient is suffering from type 1 or type 2. And C-peptide also. C-peptide also can able to identify, there is a normal value is a 0.5 to 2.7 nanogram per ml. So this C-peptide assessment also help to identify whether it is a type 1 and type 2. So insulin level and C-peptide level help to identify there is a type 1 diabetes mellitus or not. And lipid profile also. Why we are saying lipid profile? As we told, if the glucose is less in the body, in the cells, so what happens? Lipid metabolism will be breakdown, lipid will be breakdown. So that the normal value. Total cholesterol will be normally is less than 200, and triglyceride level is less than 150, it is normal. HDL it is more than 60 milligram per deciliter, and LDL is less than 130, and VLDL is a less than 300. So this normal value in order to very important for the exam. And very important again to differentiate type 1 type 2 is the auto antibody test, that is glutamic acid decarboxylate, that is a GAD, and isolate cell cytoplasmic autoantibodies, that is ICA, and insulin autoantibody, that is IAA. So this also will help to identify whether it is a type 1 type 2. There are two investigation, mainly insulin level and C-peptide, as well as autoantibody test help to differentiate between whether the patient suffering from type 1 or type 2 diabetes mellitus. So now very important thing is known as the complications. Most of the questions from the examination is the complications. So it's very important to know about the complication of the diabetes mellitus. So complication of the diabetes mellitus, for our understanding, we divided into the two: acute complication and chronic complications. Acute complications we can able to understand ketoacidosis, hyperosmolar non-ketolytic coma, hypoglycemia. These are acute complications. And chronic complications we are divided into the two level: macrovascular and microvascular. Under macrovascular, atherosclerosis, nephropathy, neuropathy and retinopathy, and microvascular, cardiovascular diseases and cardiovascular other diseases, arterial diseases and cardiovascular diseases. Now we'll study the complications one by one. So complication pathogenesis, how this complication is occurring. So with a simple understanding, I am explaining. Hyperglycemia is the basic causes of the diabetes mellitus. So once it is hyperglycemia is happening, there will be two changes in the patient's body. One is metabolic changes, another one is accumulation of the advanced glycosylation of the end product, commonly we are calling as the AGE. So with this four mechanism will be involved: polynol pathway, protein kinase C pathway, glycosylation of protein, and hexoamine pathway. So this four pathway, the end product is accumulation of the AGE. Here I am skipping the metabolism, but remember this four metabolism is very important for knowing about the other examinations. So accumulation of this AGE So this AGE accumulated into the retina, glomerulus, nerve and artery. If it is accumulated into the retina, we are calling it as a retinopathy. If accumulated into the glomerulus, we are calling it as a nephropathy. Accumulated into the nerve, it is a neuropathy. Accumulated into the artery, we are calling as a arteriosclerosis. So this is the main pathogenesis of the chronic complication of the diabetes mellitus. And acute complication, we can see ketoacidosis and hyperosmolar non-ketolytic coma. So now we'll study one by one with very short. Diabetic ketoacidosis. It's a type of acute complications occur mostly in the type 1 diabetes mellitus due to deficiency of the insulin production. So here things to remember, it is acute complication, type 1 diabetes mellitus and deficiency of the insulin production. So this diabetic ketoacidosis is characterized by three. Number one, hyperglycemia, and the patients have acidic environment, that means pH is less than 7.3, and ketosis. So these three characteristics is help to identify the patients are whether having the diabetic ketoacidosis or. So ketosis can be identified in the urine, presence of ketone bodies in the urine, that is the Rothera's test. We can able to identify the patient suffering from diabetic ketoacidosis or not. So next acute complication is the hyperosmolar non-ketotic coma. So it is a very common, is a again acute complication, mostly occur into the type 2 diabetes mellitus due to target organs are less response to the insulin, as we are aware that insulin resistance. So the less insulin deficiency secretion leads to prevention of acidosis and ketogenesis at the cellular level. But insulin unable to transport the glucose to the cell from plasma, which leads to serum hyperosmolarity and extracellular fluid loss, causing intracellular dehydration and hypovolemia. As we know aware that there is in the type 1, there is a ketoacidosis. So what happens is a decreased insulin that leads to acidosis and ketogenesis. But in the type 2, insulin is normal, but where is the problem? Insulin is unable to transport the glucose into the cell. So that leads to the patients get serum hyperosmolarity and extracellular fluid loss. The patient will be losses more polyuria, so that leads to intracellular dehydration and hypovolemia. So I make still more very beautiful with the flow chart. I am explaining insulin deficiency, hyperglycemia leads to glycosuria. So as we know, the glucose passes into the urine, so that leads to the patient passes more urine, more than 3 liters per day. So that leads to loss of water and electrolytes. So volume will be depletions, that leads to the patients will get diabetic coma and because of dehydration. This is a simple understanding about the thing. This mostly occurring to the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So whereas here increased lipolysis, where it is taking place, adipose tissue. So that leads to increased plasma free fatty acids, that leads to increased plasma oxidation, it is present into the liver. So formation of the more keto body, and it is end result is ketoacidosis. So this is occurring into the type 1. So type 1 individuals are mainly suffering from ketoacidosis, and type 2 individual mainly suffering from the diabetic coma. So now we will study about the differentiation between diabetic coma and ketoacidosis, diabetic ketoacidosis. So cause is actually insulin resistant in case of diabetic coma, insulin deficiency in case of diabetic ketoacidosis, and onset is gradual onset in case of diabetic coma and sudden onset in case of DKA, and serum insulin level is normal in case of HSS, that means it is a type 2. So this is a type 2 and this is a type 1. So what happens in the normal serum insulin, you can see into the HSS, and where there is a less in case of DKA, and dehydration is present in case of HSS and absent in case of DKA, and ketone bodies is in the plasma, it is in the blood, it is absent in case of HS and present in case of DKA, and pH is more than 7.3 in case of HS and less than 7.3 in case of DKA, and last one, serum osmolarity is more than 350 m osmolarity per liter in case of diabetic coma and normal in case of DKA, and ketone bodies present into the urine in case of absent in case of diabetic coma and present in case of DKA. By simple understanding, DKA is a type 1 diabetes, mostly type 1 diabetes, and diabetic coma mostly occur into the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So now we'll study about the third complication, acute complication of the diabetes mellitus. So it is a type of acute complications occurring in the type 1 as well as advanced case of type 2 diabetes mellitus. So it is defined as clinical syndrome with various causes leads to low plasma glucose level concentration which is less than 70 milligram per deciliter, which is characterized by presence of neurological manifestation like a seizure, altered behavior, coma, etc. So as per the Whipple's triad, there are three triad can able to diagnose to the hypoglycemic patient. There is a fasting hypoglycemia is a less than 70 milligram per deciliter or less than 3.5 millimole per liter, or symptomatic hypoglycemia, autonomic and neurological symptom will be appearing, and third one, relief of the symptom after administration of the glucose. This is known as the Whipple's triad, very important for our exams. So now we'll go for the atherosclerosis. So this is the chronic complications. So this is the type of chronic complications occurring into the type 1 diabetes mellitus as well as into the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Most of the chronic complications occurring in the both type of diabetes mellitus. So it is a type of arteriosclerosis characterized by intimal lesions called atheroma or fibrofatty plaque due to increased lipolysis in the chronic diabetes mellitus leads to deposition of the LDL in the vessel wall. As we know, there is a lipid metabolism will be altered. So there is a increased lipolysis. There is a increased lipolysis leads to deposition of the LDL in the vessel wall. So diabetes mellitus leads to there, as we know, diabetes mellitus complication is one of the leading symptom is hyperglycemia. Next one is the lipolysis. So that leads to hyperlipidemia, endothelial damage due to the accumulation of the AGE and platelet adhesions. So this possibility the patients going to suffer from atherosclerosis. So this is the importance of atherosclerosis. Mainly the patients are suffering atherosclerosis because of increased lipolysis. This is simple pathogenesis. Now diabetic microangiopathy. So how the diabetic microangiopathy? It is characterized by the basement membrane thickening of the small blood vessels and capillaries of the different organ and tissue such as the skin, muscles and eye and kidney. So small vessels will be involved. Small vessels of skin, muscle, eye and kidney will be involved. So what will be the pathology? The thickening of the small vessels. So how it is taking place? With a simple understanding, as we are aware that hyperglycemia that leads to accumulation of the advanced glycylation end product, that is AGE, that leads to deposition of the protein and LDL as well as thickening of the basement membrane. So both leads to vascular leakage and vascular occlusion leads to diabetic microangiopathy. So this is the simple understanding. That is the reason if you are able to know the basic concept of the metabolism, very easy to identify the diabetic complication. The next complication is the diabetic nephropathy. So this also it is a clinically characterized by the persistent macroalbuminuria. I told you how it is diabetic macroalbuminuria. It is more than 300 milligram per deciliter with or without increase of creatinine at least 2 occasion of 3 to 6 months, and increased arterial blood pressure and progressive decreases of GFR. So this is the characteristic of the diabetic nephropathy. If the patient suffering from persistent macroalbuminuria, increased arterial pressure, that is hypertension, and progressive decrease of GFR, we can able to identify diabetic nephropathy. There are different stages are available. Totally there is five stages. So that is depend upon the GFR. Okay. Now we'll go for the diabetic neuropathy. So diabetic neuropathy, it is defined as reduction of the symmetrical peripheral nerve function due to accumulation of the sorbitol and fructose in the nerve. This is a very important for the exam. Sorbitol and fructose in the nerve lead to the non-enzymatic glycosylation of the structural nerve protein in the people with the diabetic mellitus after other causes have been excluded. So some of the stages, no signs and symptom of neuropathy. N1 it is the presence of neuropathic sign and N2 is the symptomatic neuropathy. And last one it is the disablating neuropathy. That means a distal symmetrical. So here things to remember is two. One is symmetrical peripheral nerve will be involved, and basic pathology is the accumulation of the sorbitol and fructose in the nerve. And next one, it is a diabetic retinopathy. So diabetic retinopathy is a disorder of the retina caused by microangiopathy due to the long effect of the diabetes, leading to progressive damage of the retina resulting in blindness. So as we know, microangiopathy, that is a microvascular occlusion and leakage of the retinal capillary vessels, lead to retinal ischemia that leads to retinal damage. So that is the retinopathy. The last one we are going to talk about the diabetic foot, one of the common and complication of the type 1 as well as in the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Is one of the chronic complication of the long-standing diabetes mellitus patient. Whether it is a type 1 or type 2, the patients mostly suffer from diabetic foot, and there are three types basically: ischemic diabetic foot, and next one is neuropathy diabetic foot, third one it is a mixed type. We will study the difference between two diabetic, uh, ischemic diabetic foot and neuropathic diabetic foot. Differentiation we'll see. The cause is usually ischemic is the insulin resistant and neuropathic is the insulin deficiency. That means, in another word, we can assume that ischemic diabetic foot may occurring into the type 2 diabetes mellitus, where there is neuropathic diabetic foot can occur into the maybe occurring into the type 1 diabetes mellitus. Temperature will be cold in case of ischemic diabetic foot, where there is a warm in case of neuropathic diabetic foot. Skin color is the paler in case of ischemic diabetic foot, where there is a normal or pink in case of neuropathic diabetic foot. Edema is absent in case of ischemic diabetic foot, where there is present in case of neuropathic diabetic foot. Arterial pulsation also absent in case of ischemic diabetic foot, where there is present in case of normal diabetic foot. And ulcer, usually this is the area, this is the ulcer type of ulcer you can able to differentiate ischemic and neuropathic. In case of ischemic, peripheral area, margin of the ulcer will be in the margin, there will be affected, where there is under pressure area, there is a plantar surface of the foot will be affected in case of neuropathic diabetic foot. And the last one, the dry gangrene you can see in case of ischemic diabetic foot, and neuropathic you can see moist you can see into the neuropathic diabetic foot. So again I am telling in very short, ischemic diabetic foot may occurring into the commonly type 2 diabetes mellitus, and neuropathic may be in the commonly in the type 1 diabetes mellitus patient. And the very important in clinically, the ischemic diabetic foot is painful and neuropathic is the painless. So that's about the complication of the diabetes mellitus, very important for our exam as well as into the examination. Now we'll study very short about the management of the diabetes mellitus. There are only two management. One is to prevent the or to control the hyperglycemia. Next one is to prevent the complications. So there are three area of management. Number one management is the diet. That is some of the diet having low glycemic index. It's very important to study about the glycemic index. So diet and exercise can help to prevent the diabetes complaint, and some of the tablet, and if in the very later stage, the tablet and insulin injection can help, especially for the type 1 diabetes mellitus. Type 1 diabetes mellitus, the insulin is less normally in the body, so we have to make a artificial insulin from the outside to the body. So this is a three type of management. So mainly this management helps for the type 2 diabetes mellitus along with the tablets. So that's the end of my class. So I have taken from the various reference which I have quoted here. So thanks to those reference. And now we'll end up with the top three questions. So number one questions: what is LADA and MODY? How it different from other form of diabetes mellitus? Because nowadays this is in this world we are going to suffer from LADA and MODY. So we have to know about simple understanding about this, how to differ from other type of diabetes mellitus. Type 2, which is the first hormone isolated, purified, synthesized as well as produced by recombinant DNA technology. So which is the hormone. So this is most of the NEET examination or MCQ questions will come from this word, which is the first hormone. Third one, it is what are the low glycemic index food? Very important to know to advise to the patients who suffering from diabetes mellitus. So if you can able to, as we aware that management is very important, general management is more important than the specific management. So we have to know, if you want to advise the general management to the diabetic patient, we have to know about the low glycemic index food. So we have to list about the some of the low in glycemic index food. So what are the those food? So this is the 3 questions. So post your question into the Dropbox in the YouTube. So it's very important to know about the diabetes mellitus because it's one of the upcoming diseases. You can say top 10 mortality. That means top 10 death diseases in this world is, it is around diabetes mellitus carries 5 to 6 causes of the in the fifth or sixth position of in this world. So knowing diabetes mellitus is very important to understand. So that's about the end of my lecture. So thanks to one and remember always this quoting, knowledge is our power. So thanks to one and all.